offer is a completely new life. So we've all made mistakes, but you are not a mistake. So if this is something, I had a slide, but
he's not as cool as me.
If it's something that interests you, we meet right here at Timber Ridge Church every Sunday at 5 o'clock. Just come see us. There's no sign up. We'll get you hooked up when you get here. So,
yeah, and if either of these that we've talked about interest you or you would like to know more, we'll both be here after service kind of in the front. Feel free to come and talk to us. Or if you're nervous to talk to somebody, again, my phone number was up there. And if you want his number, I guess I'll give it to you. Coming up on October 12th is our next ladies' night. And if you'd like to get registered, you can scan that QR code right there and it'll get you registered. I can tell you right now, you're not going to want to miss this ladies' night. We've had some pretty great ladies' nights, but I think this one might top them all. So make sure you get registered so that we have enough food for everybody. And make sure you're there because it's going to be a great night of fellowship and fun.
TRC kids, third graders through sixth graders. If you got a kid with TRC kids, they're going to be meeting today from 4:30 to 6 o'clock at the Foster's Home Gym. If you don't know where that is, go a quarter mile west and an eighth mile north.
Okay, Lewis and Clark.
Foster's Home.
Tonight at 4:30, Youth Praise Band starts back. They'll meet here at TRC at 4:30. And then following Youth Praise Band is Youth 180, which will kick off at 6. This is for grades 7th through 12th.
And then if you're interested in becoming a part of we have a lot of different ways to get involved here at Timber Ridge and a lot of different ways you can get involved in the community. The first thing that you're going to need is a pair of Converse. Them's the rules. So Hawaiian shirts are highly encouraged, but they are optional. There's a lot of different things that Timber Ridge gets involved in, not just within this church body, but within the community. And some of the ways that you can help with that is by giving. So you can give with the website, you can give through Venmo, text to give, or when those gray buckets get passed across the row, you can give that way too. Please remember that if you filled out that connection card, please drop it in the bucket as it goes across. So,
if John and Christy will come up on stage at this time, please.
Well, while Pastor John and Christy were out on their vacation the last couple of weeks, we celebrated their 1-year anniversary here at Timber Ridge. So they conveniently were gone, so we couldn't celebrate them then, but we're catching up now. But we just wanted to thank them for the last year. If you've been here throughout the transition, you know it's been absolutely exciting, but there have been some hard times too. It's just hard getting used to new things. But we are so blessed by their leadership and their ministry here at the church. So we just wanted to thank them for this last year. And we're so excited about all the years ahead of us.
Are you going to say anything this time?
Well, before we knew that was happening, we did want to share how excited we are to be back, and that while we were gone, and no, actually, we were back this week, coming back, TRC had a birthday, and so we are 13 years old, guys. We are a teenager. 13 years ago, Nick and Joe started, I know, I feel like that. I mean, that's like a big deal, right, when you have that birthday. Started out at the old hotel, and it's so exciting thinking back to those days when they were sharing God's vision, and early on when we came in one of those, I think it was the actually very first Sunday outside of their home there, and TRC was our first supporting church to Haiti. So that was so super cool. And I just remember John standing on stage at Timber, and the stage was really low. And so he had to hold his head like this because in that hotel room, they would build the stage up for the praise team. And so I was like, you know, when you're sitting back in the back of the room, because Jordan and Ava were 3 and running around, and I was like, what is wrong with his neck? Because he looked like he was like talking to the church like that. But remembering those days have been sweet. And I was trying to think about what happens with 13-year-olds that is anything like TRC over the last year. And I was thinking like the new the floors, right? Like updating. And I was thinking how teenagers like start becoming aware that they might want to have better body hygiene and like shower sometimes. And so we've gotten some new floors. And I was thinking about the security system that we didn't have before that we got. And you're a little more aware as a 13-year-old of what's going on around you, just a little more. And so I do think, guys, we look a little more like a teenager. We're getting there, guys. So we have enjoyed the last year with you, and TRC is officially 13 years old.
The buckets are going to be passed. As that's happening, there's a bump happening. So watch this video. We're beginning a series, week 2, of living inside out in an upside down world, or living upside down in an inside out world. I always forget. I named the sermon, but I always forget what it's called. Something's happening during this sermon too. Sam Osmotherly, Jared's wife, his kid's pastor here, oversees men's ministry. She is painting as I preach this message in these series. So she's going to do 9 different pictures laid upon one canvas. And so when we sat down and talked about it, she's like, "So what are you thinking?" I was like, I don't know. I'm not the artist. You are. And so in that, Sam, go ahead and come on up. I'm going to put you on the spot. Sorry. I thought you'd be back in kids, so this is good. But we sat down and talked and said, "Hey, I would love for you to do this. Or is this something you want to do?" And you're like, "Yes, what are you looking for?" I was like, "I don't know." And so we read the Beatitudes together. And we're like, okay, what did Jesus have in mind as a picture when he was finished? And so day 1, you have this. Can you explain what you are showing us in this picture? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so poor in spirit is what I was focusing on in my mind. And the colors, there is a purpose behind the colors that I picked. So yellow just represents the beginning light of love of God. And then like all of the different colors coming into it. Like you were talking about sin, and that's when I was just adding all of the red to different bits and pieces around it. So we are messy. We're messy people. And poor in spirit, it's being broken to the point of surrendering everything. So that's why the praying hands are there.
That's amazing. I probably wouldn't have said that. Most likely no. And I'm glad you said this, because coming up, if you can put that slide up, you're going to have something here at the church as well. Can you share more about that?
Yes, I'm very excited to be able to do the first session, but I'm going to be doing art therapy. And John invited me to be able to set up here at the church. And the first one that we're going to be doing is a watercolor Zen doodle. If you know what that is, and I'll be surprised. But it's just a way to be able to relax, de-stress, and we'll be talking through different techniques while we're painting. And the most important part is that there will be snacks. So, so if you're interested, you can join October 1st. We'll be here in the cafe area. So.
Thank you. It's amazing. Can't wait to see the end. Right, it's gonna be so cool. So thank you. If you want to talk to her after service, she'll be at the front. So let me pray and we'll jump in. God, thank you so much for this moment. Thank you, Father, for what you're going to do through this message and through your scriptures. And we love you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. So I have a question. What are 3 ways you could describe a blessed life? If your life was blessed, it would have these in them. A wife that doesn't snore, okay? What else? Family. What else? What's that? God, okay? Peace. What else? Anything else? Not getting pulled over when you're speeding. Can y'all see me up there? Can everybody just say yes, you can? Okay, I'm going to move down. I'm tired of being up here. No, I can't because we got a message. That's right, I forgot. Anyway, I like that better down there. So a blessed life. I want to read you something. The word blessed, or Beatitudes actually, if you broke it down in the Latin, beatitude means blessed. And so there was this Greek word that they lived by. It's called makarios. It was a word used for the elite and then only the creme de la creme. Makarios was used to describe those who had everything money could buy and then some. Those who enjoyed the descriptive term also enjoyed the personal satisfaction of achievements, status, and the best political connections, and the wealth of enduring and enriching personal relationships. It was the supreme blessing. It was enjoyed at all times, in all places. It meant everything. Then, it was also used by the Greek gods. The word makarios was used because they were beyond the cares and worries common to the living, and now enjoyed this place of, so to speak, nirvana, or this higher place where nothing bothered you. And then something happens. Jesus shows up on the scene. He comes down from another mountain gathering, and a large crowd of his disciples was there, and a great number of people from all over his world, and he began to teach them. And he began to say, "Blessed are those." Blessed are those. Let's look at this. One day he saw the crowds gathering and he says, God blesses those who are poor. Sorry, my fault. God blesses those who are poor and they realize their need for him. Blessed are those who mourn and are comforted. Blessed are the poor in spirit and they realize their need for him. Sorry about that. And so today we're entering into week 2 of the Beatitudes. And I want to share a few things about the Beatitudes. Number 1, it is not a recipe to get more stuff. Jesus, God, is not a genie in a bottle. It's not. But let's just be completely honest for a second. How many of us live there sometimes? You feel like that if you behave better, or if you pray more, or if you read the Bible more, or if you have this or that, you have enough Christian t-shirts or whatever it may be, you dress appropriately for church or whatever, God is happy. Anybody deal with that? Anybody live in that world sometimes? You want to raise your hand if you do? Okay. So this list of things we're going to talk about is not that. Number 2, you can't just pick and choose the list. It's not, hey, I want to be merciful because I want mercy, but I don't really care about being poor in spirit. I am a college student, but still, there are a picture. These are also a picture of God's children. That's what Jesus had in mind, and I wrote that down from that video. Jesus told Matthew, these are directions on how to find me. I love that. These lists of 9 things, 10 things are the way we find Jesus, and because we're his children. And when we live as his children, we're going to show people these things, and they're going to connect it when we tell them it's only about our amazing God. We cannot live them out in our own strength. You can't even try to do this. So I want to jump into this thought for a second. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are those who are poor and realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Now, the word makarios would be connected to the blessing. The blessing is the kingdom of heaven. And what are we talking about? Are we talking about heaven someday, the place of being with him forever? Absolutely. But he's also talking about a way of life now, a contentment of things going on in your life, not a happiness, so to speak, because happiness is based upon other things. But this blessed life is this life that is at peace, even when things around you are not at peace. And so when Jesus shows up, he does something that blows their mind because they're used to these people that are blessed having these superior attitudes and having things. And then he shows up and he starts talking about poor people. And not only poor people, but poor in spirit, and we will get there. There was a writer during the time right before Jesus. It kind of gives you a picture of what blessed, or this word makarios, looks like. Can you put that up there? It says, these are 9 who come to mind as blessed. A 10th from whom my tongue proclaims, the man who finds joy in his children, and the one who lives to see the downfall of his enemies. We keep going here. Happy is the man who lives with a sensible woman. No amens. There was a lot of amens first service. And the one who does not plow with an ox and a donkey combined. You're like, whew, got that one covered. Happy is the one who does not sin with the tongue, who does not serve an inferior. Happy is the one who finds a friend, who speaks to attentive ears. How great is the one who finds wisdom, but none is greater than those who fear the Lord. Fear of the Lord surprises all else. To whom can compare the one who has it? Ben Shira, Jewish scribe, 150 BC. Now, this is what would have blown people. Because see, when they heard the word Jesus starting, saying Makarios, they would have been like, okay, let's go, Jesus, we're ready. So people that are blessed, they have a lot of stuff. People that are blessed has all the connections. And then he begins to say stuff crazy like, blessed are those who are poor. It would have been crazy to hear Jesus say this because it's living outside out in an upside down world. His kingdom looks different. And so I want to ask us this question this morning. God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for him. I was sitting in a home the other day and we were talking about difficult times in our life. And I want us to go there for a second. When has Jesus felt the closest to you? When has Jesus, and we don't have to answer these out loud, but when has Jesus, leave that hanging, when has Jesus felt the closest to you? If it's like me, and if it's like the ones, the husband and wife that were sitting on their couch on Friday, it was something like this. When we were at our end. All the others are gone. All the backup plans, everything else, and we come down to the foundation of understanding it has to be you, Jesus, or it's nothing. And that's sometimes the blessed life. And Jesus starts there. He says, blessed again are the poor. So what does that mean? That we cannot do anything on this planet without him as our strength. Do you believe that this morning? Do you believe that the only way you can love your wife or love your husband is the love that Jesus has offered you, a sacrificial love? Do you believe as college students, the only way that you can continue and work hard in your schooling is not for your parents, but for who God's created you to be? How about students in high school or students in junior high or those up in the cheap seats on the left? They living a friendship. How about a friendship? Are you able to be a friend to that person? Or are we fair weather friends? When they're nice to me, I'll be nice to them. Or are we able to live out a life that is poor in spirit, meaning we're not less, but just Jesus is more through us. But we don't live in that kind of world, do we? We live in what makes us happy, how we can get ahead, how we can reach a status, and then everything will be good. Guys, how have you ever got to a place and you finally said, okay, I made it. I've made it. It took me and Christy to go to Alaska to get on a ship that I stayed on way too long. 7 days is way too long for a cruise. Because I was outside my balcony with our friends, and the guy is like Christy. They're not as good as Shauna, the wife, and me, but they're good. And so we were standing there, and they were talking about counseling stuff. And Shauna and I were talking. I was like, Shauna, I have a question. We're on the 12th story. Do you think we could clear the safety boat and hit the water if we jump from here? And she's like, John, not, other people, more boring people would say this, John, that's not a good thought to have. But Shauna said this, we'd probably have to climb out on the ledge and get on this other side of the balcony, and we could clear the lifeboats easier. Day 6 on a cruise, right? And so we knew, but it was a blessing. And this is what I began to see. When I came back home, I realized that I had a piece of heaven, and it wasn't in Alaska. It was in Highland community in Dublin, Texas. And so God began to show me some different things, going through different experiences. And so this morning, I hope, we're going to go through it quickly, I hope that you begin to see things a little different. But I have a question for you. And maybe you've been here before. So you realize, you hear this, Jesus says, Makarios, or blessed. Blessed are those who are poor, and they realize their need for him, and they realize that theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Do you ever get close to Jesus, and you're thinking, holy moly, I am messed up. How in the world could he love me? I am screwed up. I cannot do anything right. My thought life is off track. That person that has ticked me off, that I'm just done with them. I'm going to write them off. I'm critical. I don't like myself sometimes. And you're a follower of Jesus? I would say, yes, you have those moments because we live in a fallen world. Now, a perfect God, understanding what it is to be Makarios, would understand, blessed are those who are poor and realize their need for me, but then they're going to get to a point that they feel like they're failures. They feel like that they're far away. They feel like they cannot make their way or add up because, man, this is hard. This is what he's expecting of us. So then we come and we see this. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Guys, it is a mourning. Yes, we live in a broken planet. People are passing away. We have broken relationships, broken marriages. GPAs are probably tanking at this point in college, right? Hopefully not, but maybe some of them are, and there's a lot of questions that surrounds everything, but we come back, are we good enough? And so Jesus says, hey, I want to comfort you, but first you need to recognize that what you're trying to seek comfort in is not going to work. Remember verse 3, you are poor. Without me, you're nothing. And he's not telling you that because he has an ego trip. He's telling you that because he understands as God in the flesh as well. He went to the cross for you. You're broken. I'm broken. And he says, I'm going to die for you. And he went there. He had separated from his Father because of sin. He was resurrected. Now he's saying, hey, this is what you look like when you're my child. And so it would naturally occur if we get to being close and being in the kingdom, living out this relationship with the Father, sometimes we're going to feel like we don't add up. And how do I know that? Hey, there's some college students in this room that have some parents that they've been trying to gain their favor for their entire life, and you can't, so you recognize it. There's some adults in here that Christy tried to gain her father's applause forever, and she never could. Because it wasn't how great Christy was, it was how insecure he was. And until he found a peace in Jesus, it wasn't going to be fulfilled. But then when you get there with the God understands that, and he says, okay, now then, yeah, you have some scars, you're messed up, you've had sin, you've thought incorrectly. Reese, you did a good job because your wife set you up for failure when she was trying to pick on you, and you could have been angry, but since you lead a regeneration, you didn't want to show that anger to her, so you just kept going. By the grace of God. By the grace of God in a microphone. But by the grace of God, you're right. But then when you do, Reese, lose it, it would be easy to say, okay, I'm a failure. I'm digging again. And I know you probably dig again, but I'm digging again. And God says, no, Reese, come to me, mourn, because I want to comfort you. And what does that mean? It means this. Some of us do not mourn because we didn't know we needed to. I thought God took care of all my sin. I thought it was wiped as far as the east is from the west. Absolutely. But remember Peter? Peter denied Jesus in relationship with Jesus, denied Jesus, and Jesus goes and comforts him and says, feed my sheep, feed my sheep, feed my sheep. All of us have roosters in our life, and all of them crow. We have 3. If you want 1 or 2, we'll give them to you. But we all have roosters reminding us of our brokenness, just like the rooster crowed when Peter heard that, and he was reminded of how he denied Jesus. But Jesus shows up, and Peter is there. He doesn't run, and he's comforted by Jesus. He's living this out. Some of you say, hey, my sin is not as bad as yours. Remember this. Taking a grape from Walmart without paying for it is a sin. I did that a lot. I did. Don't do it. Don't do it, but I did. But our sin is not as bad as yours. If we're in that place, we need to be careful because it's pride. My sin's not hurting anyone. It's just me. Okay, this is what I would ask us. If you have a pet sin, you want to keep a pet, we all love pets, so bring him to the light and let us all see him. Because it's the things that are underneath that are hidden that wears us out. And this is why we have an enemy. An enemy that says this, hey, guess what? Man, this stuff is good. Just keep it hidden, it's fine. You go back to Genesis 3, what happens? Yeah, that happens. And they're tempted, they fall in, and guess what happens? They start blaming each other. It's your fault, God. You put this woman here. Don't try that. It doesn't go over. We're picking weeds the rest of our life. Adam. And God says, no, stop running, stop hiding. Find peace, find comfort in me. But first you've got to acknowledge it. And not to be saved again. We're only saved one time. But to be comforted. I don't have the time. I don't take time. I don't have a relationship with Jesus. We're going to talk about that in a second. So where do I begin? This is where you begin. Ask God to search you. Ask God to search your heart. Ask God to know or show you. Agree with what He shows you. And rest in His comfort. Some of you, maybe there's someone here that made some poor choices this week. It's called sin. Missing the mark. That's what sin is. Missing the mark. What mark? The perfection. What do you mean? So we have to be perfect? No, the perfection part of that shows there's no way we can do it without Jesus. It's not so much, it does condemn, but God's purpose was not to condemn as much it was to reveal. In the condemning and the brokenness, it reveals that we're broken. We need something, and it's Jesus. Now, we come back to this. That's a great place to start for you. We're going to show you a verse at the end. But why do we do these things? Why do we need to confess? Why do we need to mourn? And what does that look like? God, hey, I messed up. Because it reminds us that we are forgiven. You are forgiven. Number 2, you are loved. And number 3, you can still be used by God. 1, you're forgiven. 2, you're loved. 3, I can be still used. You can still be used by God. If we're living yesterday, and because in Revelations it says that not only does Satan tempt us, he then accuses us before the throne. He makes accusations against God's children to the Father. And the Father's like, I ain't listening. I'm just reacting like Reese does on stage. And I'm going straight forward. Not calling you Satan, not at all. Just moving straight forward. Because see, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, enemy you, Satan, we've taken care of that. Because they're going to find comfort instead of your accusation. See, some of you are living broken lives, not because you are a sinner. You're living broken lives because you're not mourning and being comforted over that choice that you have made. And today is a great day to do it. Not only you'll be reminded that you're forgiven, we are loved, you can still be used by God. But what about those that are on the outside looking in? They're able to see the gospel lived out. What is the gospel? That, hey, this broken thing was buried and came up and they're different. One of the things that I love to see is when I hear stories of the difference Jesus has made in people's lives. Danny Barnes, I didn't know you before Jesus, and I'm glad in many ways, probably. But I know him now. He's not perfect. but he loves Jesus. He brought a guy this morning with him. His name's Jimmy. Jimmy and I were in second grade together. And we reminisced about how we shined for Jesus in second grade. Not really, okay? But I love to hear the story of how people have changed. Psalm 139, 23 and 24 says this, look deep in my heart. If you have a mirror, I'd put this on your mirror. I would write this scripture. It's a powerful scripture. It's a powerful psalm. Look deep into my heart, God, and find out everything I'm thinking. Don't let me follow evil ways, but lead me in the way that has proven true. I want to share a story real fast. We did go on our cruise, and Steve and Shauna, they're our best friends. They've been our friends for 20 years. They put up with us for 20 years, and it's just beautiful. But we have never spent 10 days together. That's the test of any relationship. Spend 10 days with someone on a ship. And so the couple of days before we got on the ship, some things happened. My wife does 99% of things great. But you never want her to book you a flight, nor do you want her to book you a hotel room. I went to the DR one time. I didn't know the straightest way to the DR, the Dominican Republic, was through LaGuardia in New York. It was amazing. I didn't know the shortcut. I thought it was just like straight that way, just go through Florida. But I guess the earth was spinning too fast, and we had to go through New York for an hour. For 18 hours. Never mind. But here's the thing. But she's comforted in her sin. But here's the thing too. Christy loves hotel deals. Expedia is Greek for you're going to pay for it. One way or the other. That's what Expedia means in the Greek. I'm just joking. But this is what happens. We're driving around all day in Seattle. We went to see the Starbucks, the original Starbucks. We went to the fish market where they throw fish, which why? And then we looked at all the flowers and blah, blah, blah. And then we got into the car and we went to our hotel room that Christy had booked. When we got to the hotel room, we drove farther and farther away from civilization, from Seattle. And we drove by, these things called where you put your storage, the storage buildings. There were a lot of those. And there was no hotels, and more storage buildings and no hotels. And then we drove past, I think, a lot of things that I hadn't seen in a long time. And then we finally drove up. And this hotel was so special that it was even called a hotel. It was called a motel. And there were doors that you entered from the outside. And the good thing is, when we got inside, and Steve, my friend, is a little bougie. He's bougie. Yes, he is. And I'm talking. And so these motel rooms were so nice. You got to park right in front of your door. And then you got to go turn in your breakfast order. Apple, granola bar, water. So anyway, what this motel room did too, when you were on the inside of your room, it brought you security because it looked like there had been a fire in the room before, and so the deadbolt had been busted out. And so we're like, oh, that's cool. They've already tried this, and it works. My bougie friend Steve went to the bathroom. It was all four of us in this little motel room. The window was unlocked. And we stayed there. Long story short, we ended up going to another hotel the next morning. But this is where it all comes full circle. When we came back from Haiti, there were a lot of people that we had relationships with, and we thought we had close relationships with. But when you move away and live in another country for 6 years, things change about you. And so I went to eat with this friend of mine in a breakfast place that we had eaten before. And I went in and we sat down and blah, blah, blah. And then I left and I was calling Christy on the way home. She's like, well, how did it go? How did you and so-and-so? What was it like? Well, I said, I think we just broke up. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, it was just different. And so all of a sudden, Steve and Shauna, these people that have been in my life for a long time and have loved us through some very hard situations, I now was at the place, what if we're not really friends? What if we're just acquaintances? And I woke up early that next morning. This one had an elevator, inside rooms, had a person at the front, spoke 3 or 4 languages, had a free apple, like free apples, nice apples, Washington apples, free water that make them taste like orange and all this amazing stuff. I've tried it at home, can't do it. But I walked outside and I began to talk to God. And I said, God, I really like these 2 people that you put in my life, but have they changed too? Is it different now? And as I began to confess and saying, God says, John, listen to me. You need to stop being led by fear. You need to stop controlling things. Yes, I did see the motel last night, but you need to stop controlling things. And as I sit there and listen to it, this is what happened. The restlessness, the fear, the anxiety, the anxiousness of not knowing what was before me, all of a sudden began to change to peace. And God said this, rest, enjoy, and be. Guys, there are comforts waiting for you. But first, you probably need to go to a place. You know what confession is? Our mourning is realizing your way is not the right way. Realizing your way is not the right way. God, I want to confess trying to find wholeness in a relationship. I want to confess trying to find a peace in this or that. The other day, I was with a few people, and there was a lady in the room that said this perfectly. There are a lot of things going on in my life right now, but right here, I feel at peace. That's what Makarios is. It's living in peace. That's what our Father wants of us. So today, I want to ask you again, and we're done. What is God telling you? What is He showing you? Agree with Him and find comfort in Him. But you're saying, what if I'm here for the first time and I'm not a follower of Jesus? Then it starts in verse 2 or verse 3. It says, blessed. If you'll put that one up there for me, it says this, God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for Him. So this morning, maybe it's this. Maybe you're down on your knees. You don't have to get down on your knees. But you're like, okay, God, I realize for the first time that I have been trying to find everything in every place, but I'm done. It's in you. For Reese, his shovel broke. He stopped digging. Here's the situation too. A good father doesn't just want you to come to his house. He wants to know all about you. And He is there this morning. So as they come and play, I want to ask you this. There was a lady here first service. It was beautiful. She had just got back from a journey in her life. And she said, you know what? I needed to hear this message because I find hope in it. Because she's at a place of brokenness. And this morning, I want to ask you this. What is God showing you? I want to ask you maybe to speak that. What is He showing you in your life right now that you need to mourn over? Anybody want to share? Doesn't have to be public. You know, one of the coolest things about our staff, as I'm waiting for these people to come out, one of the coolest things, and it's not Jonathan's fault because last service he had to play like 55 minutes of me talking. The coolest thing about our staff is this. We trust one another. We do. Why do we trust one another? Because we have gone through some times together where we have been angry with one another, or spoke down to one another, or reacted in anger towards one another. But then we come to the place and God says, hey, you were wrong. And then we get to go back into an office or in a group and sit down with people and sit down with the person and say this, hey, you know what? I was completely wrong. And you know what the people say? I know. But if you didn't come, I was going to come. And we pray. And what happens in that moment is not someone on the other side that is saying, I'm ashamed of you. How could you do this? They recognize that we're all broken. And now we're creating comfort spaces that we don't have to perform to gain a status among our team. Terry's going to be loved, whether she's sailing high and telling us we can spend money or saying us not to spend money. We're going to love her. Jared is going to be loved, whether he's sitting in there and he'll eat with us for lunch or he's fasting again and he leaves. Taylor's going to be loved. Even when she doubts herself, she knows that she has people around her that believe in her. And it goes on and on and on. So if a group of broken people that have been together less than a year can begin to see what it looks like, what do you think your personal time with the Creator of the universe, how much better is that going to look? So God, we come to you today.
Thank you for checking out Timber Ridge Church here on YouTube. If you would like to see a previous message, click here. If you would like to stay up to date with all things TRC, subscribe here.